Rock news, rock history, and music, conspiracy. Welcome to the Rock Archives. Rock news, rock history. Rock news, rock history, and music, conspiracy. Welcome to the Rock Archives.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode of the Rock Archives. And this is a show about, as you can see, as you heard, rock music, rock news, and music conspiracy. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the conspiracy fact, but I'm not going to talk about it all the time. We're going to put it in some shows where it suits. And I think we got to look at the whole picture. It's more like analyzing the whole thing. So I like band dynamics, and I like the history. I like album sales. I like, the studio work and all of that stuff. So we're going to explore all of that stuff. But we're kicking off with a tragic story, the tragic tale of Dolorus O Riordan. And there is some conspiracy involving her death, which... of course, they say, no, it was nothing suspicious, but there is, and we will look at that at the end. But we will kick it off first with her life, where she came from, her band, and all that stuff. And we do have a guest up here somewhere. Let's see if I can find it in here. That's always very interesting to see. Anyway, just get my notes, just to kick it off, what we're talking about here. Born in 71. Sorry, I have to do a few things at the same time. That's always when you're running a show, you have to do it. I'll send the link again. Hang on. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, this is all running it all on your own. Born in Limerick, to a largely Catholic family, or Catholic family, as you can say. And give me 1 second, folks. I just have to do something in between here. It's really like that. Hang on. Yep, that's the tragedy of live video and recording. You have to do so many things. I have no assistant here, which I will have in the future, most likely. But for now, I don't. So give me 1 second to get this thing up and running. Sorry, this is not the start of a show, but this is the way a show starts, the very first one. Good Lord. About years later, which we will get. Okay. So, music became a refuge from an often difficult childhood, as I said, we will get into. She learned to play piano and sang in a church, developing a distinctive voice that would later captivate millions. Well, this is interesting because it wasn't just singing in church, it was Gregorian chants, and this is, in my opinion, where she got this lovely skill of using her voice in this distinctive way from. In 1919, she answered an advertisement for a local band called the Cranberry Sauce, or with an Irish sort of accent, is the Cranberry Sauce. And she auditioned with the song she had written called Linger. A great song. It was a big hit right off the bat there. The band immediately knew they had found something extraordinary. So the Cranberries, that became later the Cranberries by a sort of a mistake, when they sent a tape and they sent it back, and they said to the Cranberries, so they said, oh, this is nice, so we'll keep that one. And so it's a very interesting to go back to her childhood there, which she talked about. Now let's see if we now can have. Oh yeah, he's on at the stage. Yeah, all right, we got a guest on. So sorry, I have to do so many things at the same time. Our guest is on. The Mr. Soudosman, the myth, the legend. You don't know him yet, but he's here for the first time on this show, and we say welcome.
Thank you, Lawrence. Yeah, looking forward to this one. Yeah, the old cranberries.
Yeah, if you maybe want to introduce yourself, if you feel like it a little bit, and then for the audience, so they know what legend we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I'm just pretty much basically a self-proclaimed Elohim. Just to get that off my chest. And apart from that, I'm an avid bit of a buff into music industries and behind the scenes and people's stories overall, So I'm happy to join Lawrence on the side. I don't expect to contribute too much, but I think it's going to be a great show.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, it's interesting for people to listen to hear a conversation, so that's why also we have you here. And like I said, we dive into her childhood there in Ireland, born into a Catholic family. Her father had a horrible accident while her mother had to take care of the family. Left her father with brain damage. Her little sister then later, tragedy struck again, burned the house down. The whole community came together, and they gave her a new house. But something happened in their childhood, which we will get to later, that she got abused by someone close to the family. And this happens when there's chaos and there's many kids running around. And so she got sexually abused for a few years until her brother put an end to it. He found out who this guy was, confronted it, and they put an end to it. So that set the stage. Her singing, like I said, in the church, wasn't just singing, it was Gregorian chants. This is why you get all this beautiful, ways of learning how to use your voice. I think that's what made her really unique and gave her that skill to sing. And she also said herself, the Irish mothers often favored the boys. So she said, I had to do a little bit extra to be a little bit more popular. And that came about through singing, because everybody loved her when she sang. So right there, we already have a bit of a profile about her childhood in a Catholic, poor family, and she also described loving being there in the farmland, sitting there for hours in the field for 3 hours, drawing and looking at things. And so that sets a little bit the stage, especially for later when they get famous and everything. Often, like I did on other shows when I did my audio podcast, we talked about Axl Rose and Angry Anderson and people who were abused as a child as well. And it seems that happens a lot in not just music, in the artist industry in general. People have had horrible experiences and they need some kind of outlet, and then they get into these expressive arts. Did you ever notice this with a lot of artists? Have you seen this, that there's a lot of things happen to them which probably forced them a little bit to find an outlet?
Yeah, it seems to be a lot of the case in a lot of them. But then you've got the self-influence things from the 70s era as well that we've gone into with Laurel Canyon, like mind control sort of stuff and operators. So yeah, there seems to be a lot of darkness, so to speak, in the closet in their early childhoods.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite horrible, and she talked about it much later in her life. She was very young. Let me see my notes. Between the age of 8 and 12, if I wasn't mistaken here. This is where you're very vulnerable, obviously. Let me see here. Yeah, between 8 and 12, by someone in a position of trust, she mentioned. So that is even more horrible. She had to go to therapy and a lot of other things in her life to deal with all that. And she did try to kill herself, but it was her kids that kept her from killing herself, which is, of course, very good. And, of course, in the end, she did die in a very odd way, but we will get to that. But, so yeah, that kind of sets the stage. So from there, she moves to the band, the Cranberry Sauce, and she was immediately quite they saw this skinny little girl coming in, and they were immediately smitten with the way she sang. They couldn't get around it. And Linger, this beautiful song Linger, was the first kind of hit they produced. And also their first record was pretty popular. It took a bit, but it became very popular. So the band did make it from there. And so there were two brothers in the band and another guy. And they were all quite young, actually. They were like, the youngest was 17 and she was like 18, 19. So they were all young when they made it. And she already dealt in her career with a lot of, she had knee problems, but she had to make it because there's only one shot to make it. So she had to continue with touring and promoting the band. And so you get into a very place where you reach fame, and they had to push through. But they took a breaks in between in their careers. 7 years break, 3 years break, 3 years break. And I think that was helpful. Taking therapies, he made some solo records as well. Looks like they did it quite wisely, and it's very unheard of. Usually bands in the beginning, they tour, they tour album, they do that like 10 years straight. And but they managed to sort of, also they had to, because of her knee injuries, they had to, after a while, stop for a while. Let me see what else was on my notes. Of course, other things that we know about the band, the song Zombie, which you also touched upon last time when we did the rehearsal, was actually not so much about what happened in Ireland. It was more what happened, the bombing in Warrington in England. And the song was an angry protest against decades of violence during the Troubles. So I think you touched also upon that last time. That was quite interesting, that she was in England. And of course, back then you have to go back to the 80s and 90s. Well, the IRA was actively, bombing in London specifically. And some kids died. And I always thought it was the song about Irish kids dying, but this was actually about English kids dying. Quite a tragic story, actually. And yeah, a great protest song against all that unnecessarily horrible violence, which unfortunately continues till today, worldwide, obviously. So let's talk a little bit about then, moving along a little bit in time, where she talks about, so there was an interview in 2013 about her, sexual abuse. And I will put the link in of the article. I found the article. And yeah, she talked about inappropriate touching. And excuse me the language, but this is what it says. Forced oral sex and ejaculation on her as an 8-year-old. Her father, who was permanently brain damaged from 1968 from an accident, couldn't protect her. So there you see, these people always knew how to maneuver around these things. And her mother worked a lot. So she carried an intense shame, self-blame, and buried it for decades, which is never a good idea because it will come out, unfortunately. But it has to. So she dealt with depression, anorexia, insomnia, panic attacks, trust issues, of course, and a nervous breakdown, while the Cranberries were at peak fame. So she had suicidal thoughts, prior suicidal attempts, overdose, but survived for her children. Flashbacks were uncontrollable. Even years later, memory hit in a split second. Her kids, especially her daughters and husband Don, were central to her healing. Her children encouraged her to speak out. And so she did in 2013. After years of counseling and therapy, she told her mother 8 years earlier, apparently, about it. And she was very close with her mom. And that felt publicly liberating. She emphasized living for her kids, forgiveness work, and moving forward. And she quoted her own lyrics from the song Stupid about trapped memories. The interview ends on a hopeful note of peace, family, and strength after confronting her past. So that is interesting in itself. But this is also brings us a little bit, I don't know what you think, but it kind of brings me to the conspiracy about her death, because we had other people who did this, who spoke out about child abuse, and ended up also dead. And we will get to that later on at the end, where the conspiracy comes in, because it suddenly seems that these people, I mean, they, as Mark definitely will point out later, they say always, it's rock and roll, they drink too much, it's the lifestyle. But is it? Is it really the lifestyle, or is it just an excuse? Why, when you become a problem in the music industry, in this case, talking about sexual abuse, or going against the record labels, or doing something that's not within the confines of the industry, you're heading for trouble. Have you noticed this? I mean, we know the stories of Michael Jackson, George Michael, Prince, all these guys. What happened to them? For most people, it's not, as they accept the mainstream story, which is all right. You can choose. But, I mean, I find it a little bit suspicious. People dying in the circumstances that they die in. And we talked about it. You know about this crazy deaths with Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson. So,
yes, especially when they tend to talk up about it all, the industry, and they sniff around. I think when they burn them out as well, and they can see that they're leaving the contracts, that they actually make more money out of them when they're dead, I guess you could call it. There's a lot of shady stuff going on around all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very hard if you never heard of it, or people hear this for the first time. I know it's very hard to sort of hear that, or, I'm not telling people what to believe. We're just inquiring into it, and we'll have that's why I use Mark Devlin. He's a great researcher into these kind of things. Wrote 5 books now on the music industry and the crazy happenings in it. And yes, it's a lot of guessing and a lot of putting things together, but there is a lot of strange things happening and occurring with these deaths, and similar style. So that makes it very suspicious. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. We're just 17 minutes in, so that will be in about 20 minutes or something. But it is, with these bands and her life. I mean, they had the success. They took time off. She had kids. She felt very happy when she had kids, and she seemed to be very proud. It helped her a lot. They moved to Canada because she married their manager. She moved to Canada, and it seemed to work for a while. In the end, she did get divorced from him, but I think that helps. And she also talks about taking her mother on tour, and then the mother could look a little bit after the little ones when they were small back then, and so that helped. Going into the industry, making solo records as well, and you don't see that very often, right? That bands have so much time off in between. They had like sometimes 7 years off in between. That's a lot, Now we see, of course, with the bands who are around now, that they do that because they're getting older, but for then there was like beginning of the 21st century, they had like a 7-year break. You don't see that very often, right? But do you know any band that took like a 7-year break in between and then came back and started recording?
No, I can't think of any off the top of my head. Yeah. That's a long break.
It's quite unique, and for that band, it's they were good, but what is it? What do you think? If we just take a look at what is it of people that sort of, like I said in the beginning, like when they have these kind of traumas, why they would go into these artistic. It's not just in music; you see it also in theaters and writers and all these guys. They start expressing themselves. There's some. I think Angry Angerson talked about this when he said there's some sort of nervous energy, it has to go somewhere. They're saying, why is this child so wild and so rude and all that stuff? But now it's more understood, luckily, that something is wrong. But that must probably one of the reasons why people go there, right? They need to express themselves somehow, because it's not something you talk about, it's not something you say, hey, look, I got sexually abused, it's not something you put out there. So you do it through those means, right? You do it through writing, through singing, or whatever you can find a form of expression, especially, I guess, singing and writing, where you can put the words in. A lot of their songs actually sort of, if you look back now, seem to deal with that, like the song "Out to My Family," talking about the good things about having the family and being a part of it. So you see that a lot, right? So do you think that's just a normal sort of psychological expression that happens to people, that they have to put it out there, they have to express themselves through those means?
Yeah, I'd say that plays a big part in their therapy to a degree. So I think they're looking at it as a expression of what's laying on within in them, as a person. But not exactly saying what had happened, but in the feeling of their words. And that's probably where a lot of these abused or neglected sort of artists make such an impact, because they have got that heart there for a certain song that you can feel, you can resonate with, but without being revealing their past sexual or abusive traumas in their childhood. But you can sort of feel it when you know about it. You can connect, I think, more and go, oh yeah, I can see now why she's got that spirit inside of her, all that energy to release those sort of negativities in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and also the songs. I mean, like "Linger" was their first song, was about the first relationship that went wrong. But if you look at the lyrics, like, of course, "Zombie" was about something else, but then you have "Ode to My Family," you have "Ridiculous Thoughts." Okay, there you go. You have "Salvation," one of their hits. "Free to Decide," another one. So you can see a little bit in the lyrics, like, yeah, there's this undercurrent of, unhappiness and trauma. And I guess, yeah, through music, and this thing is a very good therapy, therapy for people. And I heard that a lot, like, I mean, I listen to a lot of things, and I know, like Brian May from Queen, for instance, back in the 90s when Freddie died and his father died and his marriage fell apart, all these things at the same time. And the only thing you could do, you get depressed, you get down, the only thing they can do is just get out there and start performing and playing music. It's a little bit of an escape. Oh, what is this? Nope. And sorry, live shows, everything happens. It's a little bit of an escape, I think. But at the same time, it's very good to get out there and express yourself. That's better than sitting in the dark and being all down. So music is a great tool for that. And I think many artists use it. When they're down, you write a song, you sing it, you pour your guts out, and in that it's very healing. Of course, she had therapy, as we've seen here, for many years. Let me see what else I had here on the notes. Oh yeah, this is the interview. Yeah, she let her talk in that interview at length. It was widely praised for her courage and helped many survivors felt seen. So that's also important, because this is a celebrity. That helps too. When a celebrity when a nobody puts it out there, then people are like, oh yeah, that's very horrible. But when a celebrity does it, has more weight to it, right? So somebody like Axl Rose, actually, he put it all over the newspaper. He just said it straight out. He went to one of the biggest newspapers and started saying he was abused. So that was quite something. And she did it later. So yeah, that helps too, right? For people to say, hey, this is some big shot, and if it happens to them, it makes it a little bit easier and open in society to talk about these things, which is good. I think it's very good to be able to talk about these kind of things. Let's focus a little bit on. So yeah, trying to set the stage a bit about her life. It's hard to put it all together in a short hour, but so from the childhood, and she later actually went back to Limerick to live there, and she actually also met her abuser. He tried to talk to her a little bit, and immediately you feel that sting again, she said. Very weird to meet someone that you have to still the child memory, So that also happened. The other band members did go on quite quickly after she died. They had some, was interesting. They had some of her recordings that she recorded at home, and thanks to that, they were able to put a last album together. And that band is obviously finished. But let's now move to her death, because I got some material on that we can discuss. This is going to be a little bit conspiratorial, so for people, it's not meant to disrespect the case, but I have this video here I want to show you. This is from the news at the time, which was saying that it was nothing suspicious was found. But as we will find out, there is a lot of suspicion. I'll just put the clip on. Let me see. Hang on. Okay, here we go. Yeah, okay. This one. Right. Okay, so yeah. Let me see. Oh wait, I have to first remove this one. 1 second. It's not easy running all this stuff. I never done this a lot. Okay, get this out. Yeah, and then we get the video in. Yeah, there we go. All right. Now, this is from the news at the time, talking about her death. Let's see what they had to say.
The unexplained death of the Cranberries' lead singer is not being treated as suspicious. British police said today they found no evidence of foul play in Dolorus O Riordan's death. A friend of the Irish singer said O'Riordan sounded full of life in a voicemail she left him just hours before she died. The 46-year-old was found dead yesterday morning at a London hotel. A coroner will determine her cause of death.
Right. So there we go. There we got the official news story. Now we go to the guy that I will go to a lot in these shows, Mark Devlin. He is a great researcher, and he wrote many books about this. So we go to an interview that he done. And this is not long after her death, like a few weeks, maybe 2 weeks after her death, in an Irish podcast. And I think I'm somewhere right on the mark when they start talking about it. So listen to this, what they have to say about it. That her death is a little bit strange. And many strange deaths occur in the music industry, always written off as like, it's rock and roll, they took too much drugs, they took too much booze, it's their own fault. Is it? We'll find out.
Are tempted to consider Savile as an isolated case. Look at the situation with Ted Heath. It's come out that Ted Heath, a former British Prime Minister, was up to his neck in sordid paedophilia, and there's been accusations of him taking...
We'll get to it. I just had to cut somewhere where they will get to her.
...young boys out on this yacht that he had, sailing out towards Jersey.
This is very conspiratorial, so if it's not your beef, then don't listen to it. But if you're interested, listen to it.
And many of these boys were never seen again. The implication being that, they were sexually abused and then killed and thrown overboard. This is a former British Prime Minister. And there are so many politicians, so many sirs and lords that have been exposed only after their death. Sir Cyril Smith, Sir Clement Freud, Lord McAlpine, Lord Greville Janner. It only comes out after these people have supposedly died that they were up to all this stuff. So here's the pattern. We only get to hear about it after they've died, and they can no longer be held accountable for it. You never hear about it while they're still alive.
But isn't that the thing though, Mark? And like I said, I'm not defending any of them. But isn't it the thing that a dead man has no defence?
Or it's another
aspect. Is there another agenda at play here? This is what I'm asking. Is there another agenda at play here?
Is it another aspect of revelation of the method? Are they telling us after the event, oops, sorry, we just discovered he was a paedophile, but he's dead now, so we can't do anything about it.
This is what I'm saying. A lot of these people were iconic figures in the, in the public psyche. Like Jimmy Savile was probably one of the most iconic people in British history.
Well, he was, but I don't understand what the value would be in exposing them after they've died if they weren't into all this stuff.
But this is what I'm wondering. I'm wondering, I'm on the side of most people who believe Jimmy Savile is what everybody said he was. I'm not trying to say he wasn't. But
Okay, I have to put it a little bit further. I wasn't yet.
Think back to Janis Joplin was discovered.
Oh wait, go back a bit. I'm probably right there. Give me a second.
So here's the pattern. We only get to hear about it after they've died, and they can no longer be held accountable for it. You never hear about it while they're still alive.
But isn't that the thing, though, Mark? And like I said, I'm not defending them.
Hotel room in London.
That's what I'm asking. Is there another agenda at play here?
Hang on.
Strange one. Can I ask you, Mark, what do you make of all these celebrities? And
all right, now we get to it. Yeah.
I was talking to Trevor earlier, and I did say I wasn't going to bring up Dolorus O Riordan because she's one of our own over here. And, you know,
yeah. So this is from 30th of January 2018. So, and let me see. She died, to be exact. Let me get my notes back. Not long after or before. 15th of January 2018. She died, 46. So there we go. This is very fresh, this interview. So let's listen what Mark has to say.
I wouldn't like to think that she was caught up in any of this bloody crap that's going on in the music industry. She had her own mental health difficulties over here a while ago. She was in a hospital here in Dublin, a mental hospital for bipolar, I think. But and tragically, we lost Dolorus last week, an absolute icon in the Irish music business. But what's your theory about all these singers, you know, winding up dead in hotel rooms? Do you think there's connections with any of this, like symbolically speaking?
So this, in the conspiracy field, people don't, because the news tells you, like I said, to show you nothing to be seen, nothing strange, just suicide, and you know, if you just accept that thing, fine. But if you want to look a little bit further, and like Mark does, and like I'm interested in as well, you see these things occur many times with many artists.
Exactly. I've started to call it death by hotel room because it's becoming very common. So there have been many artists over the decades in different parts of the world that have turned up dead in very suspicious circumstances in hotel rooms. So, you know, quite convenient in terms of them being locked away from public scrutiny on their own in a hotel room, so no one else can say with any certainty what happened. So you can think back to Janis Joplin was discovered dead in a hotel room. Whitney Houston discovered unconscious in a bathtub in a hotel room.
Exactly.
Michael Hutchence of In Excess discovered in a hotel room in Sydney. Chris Cornell turns up dead, having apparently killed himself in a hotel room in Detroit.
Yeah, Chris Cornell, also sexually abused, was working on a documentary to expose pedophilia and all this kind of stuff. So that's where I'm saying, if you do things with your status and try to put them out there outside the music industry, the industry itself seems to be not very much liking it. And you never see Bono, from U2 end up dead in a hotel room, because he's not doing those kind of things. He's doing something else, which is not disfavorable to the industry.
And now we get Dolorus O Riordan turning up dead in a hotel room in London. Yeah. And again, it's all about patterns and trends, and I always look for these. Exactly. And one thing I've noticed with so many of these artists is at the time that they pass away in these very suspicious circumstances, some of them are chalked up as suicide. So, like I say, Chris Cornell is said to have done himself in. Hutchence is said to have done himself in as well.
You can also think of Taylor Hawkins. That's one of the most recent examples, a few years back now. Also, a hotel room. Also, they found, cannabis in his system and sleeping pills and blah, blah, blah. And, But if you want to kill someone, was that not a good way to or just make it up like that because it's rock and roll?
But so many of these artists have spoken to close friends or family in the hours before their bodies are discovered. And they're said to be full of optimism, in good spirits, and making plans for the future.
But one thing I've noticed, if I could just interject, one pattern I've noticed myself is that a lot of these artists who wind up dead in hotel rooms their career would sort of be waning and they're about to make comebacks.
Exactly.
I've always noticed that. They're always about just to make a comeback.
Exactly. So many times. Michael Jackson, his career had been flopping for a few years, but he was ready to come back with that series of This Is It concerts in London. in 2009. It's either that or they've just got a brand new project that's just about to be unleashed. Stanley Kubrick passed away just before Eyes Wide Shut was due to come out. John Lennon was assassinated just at the time his Double Fantasy album came out after a 5-year hiatus. Prince was said to be working on new material. And we get this with so many other artists. With Dolorus O Riordan, she was in London to link up with this group, Bad Wolves, to go in and record a cover version of the Cranberries record Zombie. She was going to lay down some new vocals. And there's a former bandmate of hers that says he spoke to her on the phone the night before she was discovered dead, and she was in very good spirits and looking forward to the future, making plans for the week. So she doesn't sound like someone that was ready to take her own life. Interestingly, with this one, no cause of death has been given. The police have made a statement saying her death is not suspicious. Are you kidding? And the coroner has said that there will be no details released of her autopsy or any of the toxicology tests until April at the earliest.
Yeah.
So why?
Very interesting. And then we get to it another show. We have also the whole Bon Scott story, which I already did a show about in the audio versions, where they also found, the story is he drank himself to death and, too much alcohol and died from hyperthermia in a car. But he was a heavy drinker, and the alcohol levels they found in him were somewhat high, obviously, but for a drinker, it's not very abnormal. So there's a lot of conspiracy on that sort of level, on that character. Great singer, Bon Scott. But we're talking here on the Rock Archives. This is all about Dolores, the Cranberries, and her life, her tragic life, her gift of singing, bringing great music, and then, of course, her strange death, which we are now trying to put together, see what really happened there, or what is really. You never know 100%, but I don't think the mainstream story makes sense. What Mark is saying makes a lot more sense, and will we ever know the truth? Probably not. But still, we'll try and get somewhere.
What would that be? That's weeks and weeks and weeks. And why would you make an announcement this far forward to say you're not going to get the results for several weeks if there's nothing suspicious about it? See, the way so many of these artists passing away is gotten away with is through this implication that these rock and roll stars are into these wild, crazy lifestyles, It's always kind of implied. They don't even need to put any detail on it. All you got to do is to say to most people, oh, this rock singer has turned up dead in a hotel room. And most people's minds will go to, oh, it's probably drugs. Yeah, they all do drugs, these rock stars, or they've overdosed on painkillers or sleeping pills or whatever because of their crazy rock and roll lifestyles. So that's the way they get away with it. All these rock stars turning up dead in hotel rooms. If checkout grocery assistants were dying at this kind of rate, people would be saying, why are there so many checkout grocery assistants dying? Yeah. Or, lorry drivers. Why are so many lorry drivers dying? But with rock singers, nobody seems to question it because it's just chalked up as that crazy rock and roll lifestyle.
Yeah. Listen, I need to go to my last ad break, so you hang on there for a couple of seconds. Folks, I'll be back in a couple of minutes with Mark Devlin. Talk to you all very shortly. Now, folks, you're very welcome back. The text line is 087 062 7138. 087 062 7138. Now, Ray Moore, who's one of my avid listeners, he's been listening to the show for years. Good evening, Ray. I hope you're keeping well. Happy New Year to you. In relation to Jimmy Savile, he said the Savile agenda could have been, look at how we protect our own. We can do anything we like and never get caught. You will never find out till they are safely dead. Like Kennedy, we killed them right before your eyes and we even televised it. And you're still trying to work it out. That's very, very true, Ray. Well said. I don't know if you heard what I just read out there that one of my listeners sent in there, Mark.
Yeah, I did, and I think he's along the right lines with that. I would certainly go along with it.
Ray is one of those who's a bit more awake than the average person. He's an absolute gentleman. Lives
smarter than the average player.
One of my oldest listeners. Fair play to him. An absolute gent, and he always comments on certain topics on the show. Sometimes I get to his texts, sometimes I don't. Now you just sent me a text to yourself, Mark, in relation to Dolores. So we wait.
So we play a little bit more. It goes on like a few more minutes. Then I have another bit of Mark Devlin also talking about this, and people can make up their own minds.
Talking about Dolorus O Riordan, just before the break there, do you have anything more to say about that issue?
Well, just a couple of bits, and I'm always conscious of when an artist has passed away and we don't have all the details. I don't want to be insensitive and cast aspersions or jump to conclusions. And I know that she was very well loved in Ireland. And I know that a lot of people in that nation are mourning her passing, and she was a great singer. I love the Cranberries' music as well. It's always the ones I like that seem to check out early. And the ones you don't particularly care for just go on for decades.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at a newspaper report here talking about her background. And it mentions the battles she'd faced throughout her life. She'd urged others to seek help with their mental health. So she had some mental health history herself, mental health problems. She admitted she suffered from anorexia and depression after being sexually abused as a child.
Yeah.
And we hear this story with so many celebrities.
Yep.
So many of them talk about having suffered sexual abuse as a child. And it reaches a point where it goes beyond just these random life stories, and it starts again to become a pattern. And the question becomes, why is it that so many of these people that go on to become celebrities were sexually abused as children? It seems to tie into the way these individuals are selected to be put into these public roles, and it seems to have a connection to trauma-based mind control programming, which is endemic throughout these industries, as anyone embarking on that area of research will find.
It's like you've always said, and I've always maintained this as well, you don't get to the top of your game in that game unless you're allowed to, And
Absolutely.
the powers that be will not let you rise. And a case in point, and you should look into them yourself, is Irish rock band Aslan.
All right, so that's kind of the main thing we got out of that interview with Mark. Now, let's go back to the studio. Put this back. And so, let's ask our guest. Oh, he's already gone. It happens. This I find always very interesting. So we will. I will put on the other one that I had. We are now 42 minutes in, so we'll just do an hour. So we'll perfectly match up there. This one, they also talk a little bit about it. And I think I have it this time. Have it right on the mark. So let's see.
You had a whole host of them in the 60s and 70s, but there's big gaps between them. So maybe it used to be a thing that had some sort of occult priority attached to it, but it doesn't seem to be so much of a thing now.
It's not as prevalent.
Yeah.
And one more thing I wanted to run by you there now that it's nearly at the slip my mind. Actually, it has slipped my mind. No, it hasn't actually. It's come back to me now because it was something you said to me on a Skype message there a few months back when you were meant to come on a few months ago before the last conference was cancelled. It was around the time that Dolorus O Riordan had passed away.
Yes.
And I'd liken her death, and I don't want to say anything was untoward in her death. We've had the inquest, she drowned in the bath. But she's not the first pop artist to drown in the bath, is she? I mean, Whitney Houston went the same way. Whitney Houston's daughter went the same way.
Here we go. So this is very, detrimental to the whole conspiracy around these deaths.
That's right. There's many examples of artists that have turned up dead in very strange circumstances in baths. There's Whitney Houston, there's Bobby Christina, as you say, her daughter. Jim Morrison is said to have been found in a bathtub. Who else? Dolorus O Riordan is now said to have been found in a bathtub in a hotel room. Yeah. That information didn't come out for several months.
Matthew Perry, the actor, also found in a bathtub.
So she died back in January. And the police at the time said they're not treating the death as suspicious and there's no hint of foul play. But you're not getting the coroner's autopsy report until at least April. So April came and went, and there was no word on it. And then sometime a few weeks ago, back in the summer, we finally got the coroner's report, and it was said that she died of some kind of overdose of, undisclosed substances, and she was found unconscious in a bathtub. So it does become very suspect when you look at all the high number of musicians that seem to die in these ways.
I mean, if you read the reports around the time of her death, she was due to make a massive comeback. That's what she was planning.
Well, this is something you find so often with Chris Cornell. You have this thing, death by hotel room, I call it, where many of these artists just turn up dead in hotel rooms. So Chris Cornell turned up dead in a hotel room in Detroit, but he was apparently on the phone to his wife before his last concert, and she initially said he was full of optimism for the future and he sounded quite upbeat, although she later issued a different statement that put a slightly different slant on things, which is suspicious in itself. But then you can go to Michael Hutchence. So he was found dead in a hotel room in Sydney, Australia back in 1997, and he'd been out to dinner with his family the day before, I think it was, and he was making plans for the future. And then you take it to Dolorus O Riordan, who was in London to record a cover version of the Cranberries' hit Zombie with another band, and she was said to have been in conversation with friends and had loads of plans and things that she was looking forward to in the future. So none of these people strike you as individuals that have had enough of life and want to end it all. They're all looking forward to the future. So what's going on then? What, they just accidentally overdose on some substance or other? And we never really get a clear explanation of what went on. It's always left rather murky and hazy, and so many in the general public end up chalking it up as, oh, it's that rock and roll lifestyle, isn't it? You know what these musicians are like. They live these crazy, debaucherous lifestyles. They do drugs. They drink too much. It's not surprising that a few of them turn up dead every now and again. And so it's just chalked up as that. I made the comment in one of my talks the other day that if it wasn't musicians that were turning up dead in hotel rooms and bars, and say it was plumbers. So, you get all these plumbers that are turning up dead. People would surely stop to ask, why are all these plumbers dying? What's going on? What's happening with all these plumbers? But when it's musicians, people don't seem to ask that. They just seem content to chalk it up as, oh, it's the industry. That's rock and roll for you.
Yeah. It's a strange one. So, Mark, listen, I'm going to let you go now in a couple of moments.
All right, so there we have the vast weirdness, and conspiracy around all this stuff. So, I find it to be absolutely interesting and something worth listening to. And that's why I share it. But this is just the first one. Doesn't go directly the way you want it to go, but that's how it goes. But we will do more. The next one will be on the Doors. We'll have a guest from America who does a lot of research on it and has his own YouTube channel, and there's a lot of great things. So there will be a great talk. And this is a little bit part of Dolorus. There's a lot more to say, but there's a lot of videos and there's a lot of material out there. You can check it all out if you want to know more. I just did a little small dive into it and try to put some stuff forward surrounding her death and her life. And, keep it short and to the point, I suppose. And, it's a tragic story and a suspicious death, I would say. So, there she is. Dolorus, great singer, great voice, tragic story, and a very suspicious death. And we're going to wrap it up with that, ladies and gentlemen. The next episode will be on the Doors. And there will be no conspiracy there. It will be just fan talk with someone who knows a lot about it. And I'm looking forward to that. So, until then.
Rock history and music conspiracy.